At first, I thought Drew was having a weird dream. You know, those type of dreams where you're eating in a 5-star restaurant, before meeting up with your celebrity crush, and then flying on a cruise in the sky. Yeah, those type. His smile was unnerving though. A crooked smile. His lips shaping like that Momo scary meme that trended years ago. It was terrifying, especially at night. The first day that had happened, I was scrolling through my phone on Instagram before I was going to sleep. Just before I turned off my phone, I heard him stirring in his sleep. Turning my phone to face him, I looked over to see him turning to my side. His eyes still closed while he slept easily. Nothing wrong with his face, just as peaceful as ever. I couldn't help but smile softly at his features. He'd usually make goofy faces whenever I said something, nor when I complimented him. So, seeing how soft his features are when he was asleep was refreshing. It wasn't until I turned my phone away till I heard him giggle. He wasn't a sleep talker, or laugher, I should say. I turned the phone back to him and noticed him slowly starting to smile. A good dream, huh? Then, his smile stopped being soft. It turned weird. I was creeped out, but nonetheless shrugged it off and immediately went to sleep. He woke up like nothing happened, kissing my cheeks and telling me good morning. I could smell the eggs and toast from downstairs and asked why he was still home. It's only 9, hun, he explained. Breakfast is downstairs. Come, eat with me. Drew left briefly after his comment. I reluctantly followed him out of the room and headed into the bathroom to brush my teeth. As I stared into the mirror, all I could see was his smile staring back at me. Except, what I envisioned wasn't him. No, it was a man with long hair, no eyebrows, and deep sunken black eyes. He was grinning. His yellow teeth could see right through my fear. I immediately spit out the toothpaste and blinked. The man was gone. Drew? I shouted, running down the stairs. I didn't even clean my toothbrush, but fuck that shit. Yeah? I could hear him from the kitchen. As I ran into the kitchen, I could hear plates clattering against the kitchen table. I need to ask you something, I say, swinging myself into the kitchen, my hand gripping onto the frame of the entry. He looked up from setting down our plates with a confused look on his face. What were you dreaming about last night? He chuckled awkwardly. What? He asked, tilting his head. Lily, what? He asked again, almost oblivious to my question. I mean, I would be too. If he ran into the kitchen with a pale look on his face, asking me what I dreamt about, I'd be freaked out. I explained to him about the situation, but he only told me he dreamt about running away from a foot and then slowly punching the shit out of it. After that, I told myself to shrug off the feeling and progress with my day. It was nothing serious, I had told myself. For the next few nights, I would see him smiling, and each time, his smile would widen. And each time, I would become more freaked out. I didn't even want to sleep after that. I almost stayed up the entire night on my phone because of his creepy smile. On the 10th night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. His smile was hard to describe. His cheekbones balled up into a large circle as his chapped lips smiled so hard that it started to crack. His eyes still closed and his eyebrows still in the same place. It looked like the only thing that moved were his lips. Fuck, Drew, wake up, I shouted, turning on the lamp on my nightstand and shook him. Drew was a light sleeper, Anything would wake him up. I could recall on the first week of moving in with him, I twitched in my sleep and woke him up. Hell, he twitched and woke himself up. But he didn't wake up. Drew? I stared at him. Drew? I said sternly and shook him. If imagining him smile was creepy, what was creepier was the fact that he opened his eyes and looked right at me, still giving me that smile that unnerved the fuck out of me. He didn't say anything though, still just staring at me with that smile I kept seeing for the past few days. Drew? I scooted further from him. You're scaring me, I mustered out to whisper. I loved this man so much that I was willing to stay in the same bed with him for at least another minute. I noped out of there almost a minute and a half in, standing up after that. His eyes moved with every single movement I made. You're really scaring me, baby, I say quietly. I didn't want to touch him. He only looked at me, smiling widely as before. That night, I slept in the living room. Rather yet, I stayed up the whole night. I kept all the lights on and watched my favorite show to ease the fear within me. What are you doing up? I let out a shriek and turned my head around to come face to face with Drew. He was standing at least 3 inches away, giving me a small smile. Not like the ones before. You scared me, I shouted, pushing his face away. Sorry, I got thirsty and needed a drink, he explained as he walks into the kitchen. I could hear the kitchen cabinets opening and closing, before water running into a glass. Hey, there's something I needed to talk to you about, Drew semi-shouted from the kitchen. Was it about his weird smile? Hopefully. Yeah? I could hear his footsteps as he neared the living room. You need to stop staying up so late, he said, before sipping his glass of water. I couldn't face him. All I could imagine was his wide smile and bleeding lips. Yeah, I know. And if you do stay up, at least turn down the volume. It woke me up too. Drew laughs. He was drawing himself near me. I could feel his presence. Sitting himself down next to me, I scooted further from him. Maybe because I was scared, or maybe because he needed room. I'm not sure. Both, perhaps. What's wrong? He asked. I didn't respond. Instead, I gulped and stared at the two main characters arguing on the screen. Drew started to hum. A bad, awful tone as well, if I might add. Now I can't sleep. As much as I love him, I really wish he hadn't come downstairs. You can't just ignore your boyfriend and run up the stairs without him asking you what the problem was. Hun, he says quietly. Look at me. What's wrong? What did I do? He wrapped his arms around my shoulders. I finally found the courage to stare at him from my peripheral vision. He was facing me, his smile, god-awful smile, slowly starting to creep up again. What's, he hummed, wrong? Shut up, shut up, shut up. I can't fucking take this shit, Drew. Then I woke up, screaming at the top of my lungs. I stared into the pitch darkness I call our bedroom. Drew was sound asleep next to me, humming and snoring away. That song he kept humming was starting to get on my nerves. I turned on the light and looked at him, almost yelling to wake him up. But when I looked at him, he was smiling. Not the usual creepy smile, though. Instead, it was off-putting. His eyes were wide open, pupils dilated and yellow, crooked teeth showing. His cheekbones were once again higher than ever, and his tongue. His tongue rested between his top and bottom teeth, only the tip showing. I had never seen that in my entire life, and now I wasn't sure what to make of it. Drew has never done this, was never creepy. Sure, he was goofy and made a lot of weird faces, but they were never this scary. I broke down. I didn't know what to do. Every single day I'd tell him, "You know, you smile in your sleep, right?" and go on to explain how scary his smile was. He would just laugh it off and tell me that my jokes were getting funnier. That I was getting funnier. He thought this shit was a game. He did not take me seriously. But tonight, I've had it. I shook him, slapped his face, even kicked him off the bed, but nothing. He didn't wake up. Instead, he just gave me that terrible smile. Fuck you, you creepy sick fuck. I wasn't the type to curse. I was never the type to raise my voice at anyone, much rather my husband. I picked up my keys and my phone and headed out the door. A night at my mother's house would cool things down. I knew that for sure. My mother always knew what to say, even if she didn't believe me. When I got there, I rang the doorbell at least 10 times before she opened the door, still in her nightgown and her hair up. "Mum, I need to talk." "Oh, honey, you look like a mess." My mother immediately brought me into a hug and rubbed my back. It felt nice having a warm hug. It felt like home, and something I loved most. I hugged her back and started to bawl again. With every single tear I dropped, my mother asked how I was feeling about Drew. It wasn't until the third time she asked that I pulled away and looked at her. Her face was blurry, but maybe it was because of the tears and the terrible headache. What? I croaked out. "Drew, honey, they didn't call you?" Now I was confused. What did my mother know that I didn't? I could tell that she knew I didn't know. "The cops found Drew in the lake 10 days ago. We all tried calling you. The cops even showed up on your doorstep, but no one answered. I even came over the other day to see what was wrong. I even filed a missing persons report for you. Are you sure you're alright? Do you need—" No, Mum. I've been home. Remember, the office laid me off and I was trying to find a new job since... Remember? I asked, holding on to her arms. "Drew's been going to work every single day since then, Mum. What are you talking about? Drew's been found in the lake." I took a step back. My mum sighed under her breath and turned to look at her side. "Sweetie, I think we need to sit down. You're cold and you don't look..." "Mum, please just listen to me." I begged her and grabbed her arm before she could go into the living room. Drew has been home. I've been with him all day and night. The only time I don't see him is when he's at work. He came home this afternoon and complained to me about his co-workers. I literally talked to him. I've slept next to him, I explained. And every single time I sleep next to him, he gives me a weird smile. A creepy smile. Mum, I swear I'm not talking crazy. I swear I'm telling you the truth. No one has called my phone, nor have the police come by. I pulled out my phone to show her the proof. And there it was. All of it. All the text messages, missed phone calls, voicemails. "Hey, sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry to hear the news about Drew. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm always here. Mary and I heard about what happened. Let's grab some brunch, okay? Hope you're feeling better. Sweetie, are you okay? ? My mother could tell I was going insane, but she knew I was telling the truth. I was never this nutty. I swear I never got those texts. I've been on my phone every single day. Mum, I swear. I whispered out, slowly looking back up at her. She only gave me a painful look of remorse and ushered me into the living room. Have a seat. I'll go grab us some tea. As she walked away, I couldn't help but wonder who was sleeping next to me, who was kissing me every morning, and who was making me breakfast. Who was ranting to me about his day at work? I checked the messages on my phone I had sent to Drew. I had been texting him while he was at work for the past few days. That would have been proof enough. As I scrolled through our messages, all I saw were blue bubbles, ranging from "I miss you" to "When are you off? Bring home sushi." All delivered, but none were read or replied to. I shut off my phone and stared at the black TV in front of me. In the doorway of the kitchen, I saw a figure. The same familiar figure that I couldn't get out of my head. Immediately turning around, all I saw was my mother bringing back a cup of hot tea for me. You don't think I'm crazy, right? I mustered out. She only looked at me and pursed her lips, sighing through her nose this time. I think right now you're going through a lot. That's all, honey, she said, and handed me the cup of tea. It took at least 30 minutes before she began talking about Drew. He was a good kid. I'm so sorry you had to find out last. The police tried to inform you, but it seemed like no one was home. They contacted everyone you knew, including me and your father. I'll have to call them tomorrow to let them know you're here safe. Put down the missing persons report and everything. My mother sighs. How? She looked at me. How did they find him? Reality started to kick in, and I wanted answers. I'll figure out who that creepy man was later. She turned away and rested her hands on her knees. Like I said, they found him in the lake. The police said he didn't look like himself. He was smiling really wide, and... oh, I don't know how to explain it. She made a clicking sound with her mouth. They said his eyes were open and red, but he was smiling. They couldn't pull his face to look normal or anything. I stopped listening after that. But, honey... I looked up. My mother gave me a small smile. You're all right now, right? I'm pretty sure you'll eventually have to talk to the police about it when you're ready. Just get some rest. Your bed is made for you upstairs, she said, standing up. She took me to my old bedroom. Everything's still the same. Those ugly light blue walls and everything. I couldn't sleep that night. Every single time I closed my eyes, I would envision him grinning at me unnaturally. The wind blew, the tree branches rubbing against the window every once in a while. But that's when I noticed it. My parents didn't have a tree in the backyard. I opened my eyes widely, unable to look at the window to my left. The sound of the knocking kept going and going and going, to the point where it drove me insane. Finally, I looked, and outside the window was a short, lanky man with long hair that reached his shoulders. He was grinning widely, as if he was proud that he had found me. His clothes were wet, and his fingernails were as long as sharp teeth. His pupils dilated with delight, and his skin looked grey in the moonlight. I could see what he mouthed. "Found you." Hello, sinister listeners. If you've enjoyed this story, then you'll find all the author's information in the description below. For more content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to succumb to the sinister.